Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, I am delighted as chairperson of the board of directors to welcome you here at the Palais des Congrès. I'm very happy to once again have this unique opportunity to exchange with yourselves, our shareholders. Coming back to the Palais des Congrès for our general meeting takes us back through our long history. 50 years ago, we held our general meeting here for the first time in this very building. At the time, there were 150,000 individual shareholders, and now there are almost 900,000 of you, reflecting the growing confidence and commitment. I wish to warmly thank you, including those who are joining us for the very first time here, either in the room or online. This general meeting is, as you know, an opportunity for us to present your group's strategy, but also an important moment for exchange and dialogue, since we wish to take the time to answer your questions, and we will do this during the Q&A session during this general meeting. Last year, since our last general meeting, has passed against a challenging geopolitical and macroeconomic backdrop. The resilience and the performance of your group were all the more remarkable, as will be presented by Jérôme Pelletan, our CFO. Once again, the strength of our diversified business model, the agility of our teams has enabled us to continue to deliver sustained performance irrespective of the market environment. We have resolutely pursued our performance trajectory, both financial and extra-financial, and continued, for example, to step up our efforts in terms of safety, decarbonization of our activities, as well as of our clients, as well as providing support to our patients. This continued performance is first and foremost a reflection of the unswerving commitment of the 66,500 men and women who make up the Air Liquide collective and who each day rise to the challenges of today and tomorrow, and I would like to thank them. We will have an opportunity with François Jacov, the CEO of Air Liquide, to dwell on the results as well as major accomplishments of last year. I wish to welcome all the members of the board of directors. To my right, Xavier Huillard, the lead director. To my left, François Jacov, our CEO. And on the podium to my right, Madame Fatima Tiglaline and Mr. Philippe Dubrul, who are the directors representing employees, Mr. Alexis Perakis-Valat, Madame Monica de Virgilis, Mr. Ayman Ezat, Madame Catherine Guillouard, and to my left, Madame Annette Winkler, Mr. Bertrand Dumazy, Madame Kiman Mink, and Mr. Michael Taman. You are gathered here under a combined general meeting, further to the convening notice published in the BALO of the 26th of March 25, and in the Figaro on the same day. All owners of registered shares, as well as the statutory auditors, have been duly convened to this meeting. Over 4,282 of you requested an entry pass in order to be able to attend this general meeting, and I'm very happy about that. I wish to inform you that these discussions are being broadcast live on the company website, and I wish to welcome those who are listening to us online. I would emphasize that this event is open to other persons and the shareholders, and that we have journalists with us in the room. I recall that filming or circulating photos of this meeting is not allowed without the prior authorization of the company. Each of you has been given a voting tablet. We will explain later how to use it. We will now establish the AGM Bureau. As chairperson of the board, I will chair the Bureau, and I propose to appoint as tellers Mr. Michael Haskovich, representative of BNP Paribas, Madame Frédéric de Bril, representing Amundi. The two members of the general meeting who have the largest number of votes who've accepted these duties, they are sitting with us in the first row. With the agreement of the tellers, Madame Muriel Serre, who is the secretary of the board, she's also sitting in the first row, will perform the duties of secretary. So the bureau has now been set up. The attendance sheet reads as follows. 875 shareholders owning 1,269,157 shares are either in attendance or duly represented. 80,165 shareholders owning 336,543,181 shares voted through a postal vote or over the internet. The total number of shareholders present or represented or having voted through a postal vote therefore stands at 81,040 shareholders for a total number of 337,812,338 shares out of the 576,611,574 shares with voting rights, representing 58.59% of the number of shares. And we recall that each share opens the right to one vote. The quorum has therefore been achieved, and the general meeting may therefore duly be convened, and I declare the GM open. The agenda that has been published is now being displayed on the screen. I recall that all the documents required under current regulations have been submitted to the meeting bureau. All preliminary documents have been made available to the shareholders at head office via the shareholders department and on the website of the company under current law and regulations. No shareholder has exercised their right to request agenda items or draft resolutions. The Social and Economic Committee has received on a timely basis the documents and the information required for the general meeting. It has not exercised its right regarding tabling draft resolution for the agenda. Like as is the case each year, I propose that in order to save time for the discussion, that we dispense with reading out the reports of the board, the main aspects of which will be presented. As part of the preparation for this assembly, we ran a survey with over 6,000 shareholders who responded. I would like to thank them. This was extremely useful for us in order to establish the themes that you would like us to cover, namely the outlook for 2025 and the results for 2024, which are top of the list. So we will therefore start with the presentation of the financial and extra financial performance and 2024 results with Jérôme Pelletan, Group CFO. Then I will present the strategic framework, and I will dwell briefly on the global situation and its implications for your group. François Jacov will explain how this strategy is being implemented and the attendant outlook. Next, I will continue with governance, and I will hand over to Xavier Huillard, the chairperson of the Remuneration Committee. The statutory auditors will summarize their report. And to conclude, Annette Winkler, chairperson of the Environment and Society Committee, will illustrate the work of the committee and the results of Air Liquide within this remit. We will then move on to the question and answer session that we wanted to hold in accordance with established custom. We wanted it to be fairly long in order to allow time for a proper exchange and discussion with the room. You can take the floor live, and for those of you who so wish, you can send, as of now and up until 4 o'clock, your questions by text message on the number which is on your card. I should add that this method enables you to remain anonymous. And finally, we will complete the general meeting with the vote on the resolutions through the tablet that was given to you when you signed off on the attendance list. Over now to you, Jérôme, for the presentation of the results. Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, 2024 was marked by very robust performance of your group, both in financial and extra-financial terms. And we continued at the same time our efforts to prepare the future. I emphasize that we achieved these results in a very challenging geopolitical and economic environment on which Benoît will be going back in a flat market. This reflects the resilience of the group once again. I wish to analyze 4 data that are particularly important to understand the global financial performance of the company. First of all, resilient growth of our sales on a like-for-like basis. Secondly, record increase in our operating margin. Third, significant increase in our net profit. And fourth, unprecedented reservoir of growth with record investment decisions. Let's start off with sales, which we also call revenue. In 2024, our sales reached 27.1 billion euros, up plus 2.6% on 2023 on a like-for-like basis, which means withdrawing certain specific impacts in order for the comparison to be as accurate as possible. This accounts, for example, why the published figures indicate a 2% drop, which in actual fact is a reflection of the decline in energy prices in 2024 on 2023. These variations in energy cost are passed on contractually to our clients and therefore do not have any impact on our margin. Therefore, it's the comparable sales, like-for-like sales, that count, and as you can see, they continue to rise in 2024, notwithstanding a challenging environment. Now, let's look at the sales in detail. All of our gas and services activity, namely 95% of our business, are up plus 3% on last year, driven in particular by healthcare and electronics, where the momentum has improved. In geographical terms, the Americas posted the strongest growth. Let's move on to a second key indicator, which is operating margin, namely the ratio between sales and operating income. In other words, this is what enabled us to calculate the profitability of our activities. It stands now at plus 20%, and our operating margin has posted a record increase of plus 110 basis points, excluding energy, on 2023. This remarkable increase reflects the successful implementation of 3 drivers. Firstly, the management of our prices in the industrial merchant business, which is still very robust, notwithstanding a very high base. Next, our efficiencies reached a record level of almost 500 million euros in 2024, partly driven by the transformation initiatives launched in 2024, on which François will be dwelling later. Next, we pursued active management of our portfolio of activities with 20 acquisitions and 17 disposals finalized in 2024, with a very clear direction, close attention paid to our strategic opportunities. Given these very good results and given that we are confident in our prospects, Air Liquide announced in February 2025 that it will be raising and extending its margin ambition ambition. We are seeking here and now an unprecedented increase of our operating margin, excluding energy, of plus 460 basis points over 5 years. Now, to put this in perspective, I should add that we had already doubled into February 2024 our initial ambition with a goal of plus 320 basis points over 4 years from 2022 to 2025. Specifically, this means that by increasing once again our ambition, we are aiming for an increase of our operating margin of over 200 basis points over the next 2 years, excluding energy, in 2025 and 2026. The favourable welcome of our performance by the markets is reflected in our position among the top 10 market capitalizations of the CAC 40 index, reflecting strong confidence in our growth prospects and our future growth. Let's move on to the third key data, recurring net profit, which is also sometimes called net profit. This quite simply means the difference between income and costs for the company. It is called recurring because it excludes non-recurring items. It stands at 3.5 billion euros, up 11.5%, excluding foreign exchange. In greater detail, we see that the balance sheet and self-financing or cash flow at Air Liquide have been further bolstered. ROCE stood at 10.7%, consistent with the goal of our strategic advance plan. I recall that this indicator is a ratio that measures the capacity of a company or of a project to generate profit in relation to the equity that has, or the capital that has been invested. It is therefore very important in a company which is highly capital intensive, such as our own. Self-financing cash flow was up plus 5.4%, excluding Forex. We can therefore continue to reduce our debt load while paying out dividends and investing for the future. Regarding value sharing, I emphasize that the amounts paid out to our employees, which includes salaries, but also profit sharing and other items, are almost 3 times as high as dividends. And finally, our net debt equity ratio stands at 33% versus 37% at 2023. Finally, I wish to emphasize the acceleration of our investments, both in terms of decisions and opportunities over 12 months. We are continuing to prepare the future. Thus, our investment decisions once again reached a record level of 4.4 billion euros. Furthermore, the investment opportunities portfolio on a 12-month horizon also reached an unprecedented level of 4.1 billion euros. And to conclude this section, the performance of the first half of 2025 confirms the solidity of our growth and of our business model, with like-for-like sales up 1.5%. Now, let's look at the extra financial performance, which is part of our advanced strategic plan. In 2024, this was remarkable performance. All our indicators are up. First of all, in environmental terms, in 2024, once again, Air Liquide combined financial growth and environmental progress. The growth reduced its emissions by 11% on 2020. This accounts for 4.4 million tons of CO2 less. After 3 years of consecutive declines, we confirmed that we achieved in advance the target of reducing our emissions in absolute terms by 2025. The carbon intensity of the group also declined by 41% on 2015, and there again, we have exceeded the target set for 2025. And finally, regarding water management, we are pursuing the deployment of priority action plans. Our roadmap also includes social and societal considerations. In healthcare, the deployment of support plans, personalized support plans for our patients, covered 50% of our patients at home in 2024. In low and middle income countries, the group has extended its Access Oxygen initiative to Mali. Over 2.7 million persons have enjoyed facilitated access to oxygen since the establishment of the plan in 2017 in Africa. For our employees, safety comes first. This is our absolute priority. In 2024, we managed to reduce by 32% the frequency rate of accidents in relation to 2023. This is the result of the mobilization of the teams, collective effort, and constant daily vigilance by everybody. Diversity, next. It accelerated in 2024 with 33% of women among managers and professionals, which is the highest percentage in the sector. The deployment of a common basis of care coverage has now been completed 1 year in advance. Each of the 66,500 employees of the group enjoys this, even though this is not a legal obligation. Finally, 87% of our employees now have access to our Citizen at Work program, which enables them to devote part of their work time to voluntary work and to support local citizen work. So 2024 was a record year, both in terms of improvements in margin and investments, including the increase of all our sustainable development indicators. This proves once again that financial performance and positive impact can go hand in hand. This combination is the strength of Air Liquide. And for the first quarter of 2025, we see confirmation of the strength of our growth and the resilience of our business model. And for 2025, we're confident in our capacity to increase once again operating margin and regular growth of our recurring net profit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jérôme, for this presentation of the financial and extra-financial results. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, it's a great pleasure for me once again to meet up with you at the AGM. I must admit, this year is a bit of a special year. Indeed, we are no longer saying this. This is indeed a fact. Our world, in a few months, has switched and fallen into uncertainty and complexity. Our room for maneuver is narrower. However, I do believe that there still are very many opportunities out there. We must therefore stay the course, but adjust our speed. And that is what I want to discuss today as we look at the situation of our group and the effects of the outside world on it. First of all, 2024 closed on a record level of performance. And I'd like to thank, on behalf of the board and on behalf of each and every one of you, our staff. As I was telling you last year, our world was hoping for a new balance given the many crises and the new balance of power. People were talking about a new world order emerging. In fact, what we can see is that fragmentation has increased. Just look at traditional geopolitical alliances. After all, they are the basis for stability and prosperity of our world and have been for more than 50 years, and they have now been overtaken by transactional alliances relying on strategic, economic, or even ideological interests. Just look also at the fact that the rules of the games are changing before our very eyes, meaning that new behaviors are emerging with an impact on security, trade, or climate. What is also new is that influence networks are shaping themselves well beyond geographical borders. Political parties, media, new information platforms, social networks, and social media are now increasingly active in the shaping of opinion, leading to an increased defiance and suspicion vis-à-vis institutions, and also unprecedented polarization. Influence is on the verge of interference in too many instances, meaning that there is tension because nations are trying to increase their autonomy and their resilience. That has led to increased protectionism, a return to regionalism, and the assertion of sovereignty, which is now becoming a major territorial and trade ambition for many countries. Supply chains have been disturbed or broken down even, leading a number of political and economic stakeholders to relocalize, to onshore or reshore their strategies, chemistry, steel, electronics, or even to engage in a race for critical resources, energy, rare earths, water, food, etc. The age of globalization, which has lasted for so long, does seem to be coming or to have come to an end. We now have to operate in a fragmented world. This means that businesses will have to go on playing a role, but a different role, meaning, for instance, that we will have to go on embodying progress and responsibility. We have to show our ability to create more value for society as a whole and go on being an innovative force, a trustworthy force. By acting close to the field and recognize that local interests should guide us and help transform us where they emerge. In this world that has changed, what we find reassuring at Air Liquide is that progress and responsibility, action on the field, are exactly what we are. It is at the heart of our being. The seas have become very choppy with threats and taxes, but it's more superficial and short-term than deeply established, where in the depths we still have long-term trends. These long-term trends guide the world. These are those that are unavoidable, that help structure our long-term strategic choices. The global economy does not come to a halt. It adjusts, adapts, it redefines new growth models. For instance, the circular economy, sustainability, or onshoring. The quest for progress is also forever there. Social, economic, technological progress. And in that field, in those fields such as security, health, climate, water, the energy, all of these things are such that we have to cooperate and cannot fall back on ourselves. Lastly, I'd say that technology is a wonderful lever. More than ever before, it opens up new prospects in the medical field, in energy, decarbonization, artificial intelligence, and the industries of tomorrow. On all these, our trends will remain and new alliances will emerge. And that's exactly what our business at Air Liquide relies on, these long-term, deep trends. And I can therefore reassure you, first of all, the world will not move on to less digitalization or to less artificial intelligence or less defense. On the contrary, these are industries that are growing, speeding up, and semiconductors are key, and our solutions are instrumental. Secondly, the world would not turn away from decarbonization or the energy transition that we have to implement and which we are key players in. Being clean in our production, in our transport, are becoming the standards that our fellow citizens expect us to stick by, because and this leads to collective value creation and to progress for the company. The staging point will be 2050. The stages, the milestones may change, but the goal remains. Lastly, the world is not getting any younger, and there will be an increase, therefore, in chronic diseases. And in each country, the health systems are looking for solutions to help, cure, treat better without increasing expenditure. As you know, Air Liquide has already 16% of its business in health. And we offer solutions to address the quality of health and keeping health expenditure in check. And it is through investment, far more than exports, that we will bring about growth, as we already do. Our market shares are such that there are still very many opportunities and prospects. So, how can we stay the course and avoid the rocks? Well, let me mention maybe 3 principles that have been guiding principles for a long time and which seem to me to be particularly relevant. First of all, seize what is starting. As you know, Air Liquide has a unique position in its relationship with its customers and patients. It means that we can identify latent needs, be ahead of time, ahead of the change, and adjust and suggest concrete solutions for tomorrow. And that's exactly what we've done with carbon capture, for instance. Very early on, we had realized how much it could do to help reduce CO2 emissions. Our vision materialized as early as 2015, 10 years ago, when we built the first cryo-cup unit in Normandy, and it is now an example for so many. Let me also mention hydrogen, for instance. The hydrogen industry for industry is still growing, and there is also ammonia cracking to produce hydrogen, and that is it's still very early days in this respect. Second principle, never give up on innovation and adaptation. Innovating is and must remain the heart of our business, and that's how we can go on having ideas to try out or to be ahead of the curve. 20 years ago, no one would ever have thought about the key role of our molecules in the semiconductor industry. 20 years ago, no one would have imagined quite how large AI in industry would be. Adapting, transforming, being nimble, that means that we can go on being competitive and being at the forefront as we have been constantly for 120 years. And that is precisely what our Air Liquide teams are good at. They can combine ambition and humility and are forever questioning themselves. And that is how we can go on being relevant for our clients and our patients. And François will tell you more about that later on. Third principle, bringing together. In the current circumstances, cooperation, coordination is something that must be done. And let me say this once again, no one can take up the challenges alone. We therefore have to make sure that public and private forces come together and share a vision. And this is particularly true in the fact that we require a streamlined regulatory framework and a more flexible one from the states. But on the part of businesses, we need further investment and innovation. We also need to reinforce the competitiveness and the appeal of businesses, and this is particularly true in Europe. To do so, we need to have a better coordinated and more pragmatic approach. We have all the cards in hand in our continent. We only have to implement this. Lastly, we have to bring people together, bring our teams together, focus on a specific set of values. And that's what we did with the advanced plan that comes to an end this year. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, this is a brief overview of the environment in which your company is operating. It isn't easy, but you can rest assured that we will not lose our ways. We will remain true to our commitment, our values, ethics, respect, security, being open and listening, and long-term performance. We will remain true to our business, to our clients, to our patients, offering innovative solutions that are relevant and create value. We will remain true to our staff and our teams wherever we have a business, and will create a future full of motivation and resilience for them. And lastly, we will remain true and loyal to you, ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, you who have put your trust in Air Liquide. There are 900,000 individual shareholders today, as I said earlier, and together you hold 1/3 of the share capital of Air Liquide, together with the institutional shareholders. So it is quite clearly your group. It is that trust, that confidence that you have vested in our business, in our teams, that is what is key to the return you deserve. Given the excellent financial performance in 2024, the board suggests the dividend be 3.30 euros per share for 2024, and that is a 13.7% increase on the previous year, taking into account also the allocation of 1 free share for 10 shares held. This will be paid on the 21st of May. As you can see, we remain true to ourselves so that we can go on having a good performance and go on innovating and building the future with the ambition and the determination that you already know. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Before I give the floor to François, let us have a look at the highlights of 2024.
Energy transition, low-carbon hydrogen, carbon capture, electronics, healthcare. 2024 was another record year of success for Air Liquide. Major investments paved the way for the future of our group worldwide. Let's start with France. We supplied renewable hydrogen for the official Paris 2024 fleet, covering more than 1 million kilometers. We have invested in a supply chain for renewable hydrogen produced by our Normandy electrolyzer, the largest of its kind under construction.
Dans le cadre de la souveraineté énergétique et industrielle, l'expérience d'Air Liquide sur cette production d'hydrogène et des ingénieurs qui travaillent autour des électrolyseurs, c'est la garantie de créer une vraie filière sur le territoire français.
C'est un électrolyseur qui est 10 fois plus grand que Air Liquide a déjà construit.
The D'Artagnan project, in partnership with Dunkerque LNG, is the first CO2 infrastructure project in France to win support from the European Union. Across Europe, our home healthcare activity has grown, supporting 10,000 new patients living with chronic diseases.
Back to having plenty of energy. I'm very grateful and thankful that I have the CPAP machine.
The European Union granted funding to our project for a new plant in Antwerp to produce, liquefy and distribute ammonia-based low-carbon renewable hydrogen.
By doing this project, we will unlock new technology to deliver renewable hydrogen to our customers in chemical, petrochemical industry and for mobility.
In North America, in Texas, we could make our biggest investment yet by creating a low-carbon industrial gas platform to support ExxonMobil's hydrogen project. In Idaho, our innovative production site will supply high-purity gases for Micron Technology to produce memory chips. In Tennessee, we will supply oxygen to LG Chem's electric vehicle battery plant. In South America, in Brazil, we are helping to reduce the environmental impact of healthcare by supplying a Sao Paulo hospital with certified low-carbon medical gases, as well as for some 20 other healthcare establishments in Europe. In Asia, we strengthened our presence in Japan with a new air separation unit for Mitsubishi Materials. In China, we launched a long-term partnership with Wanhua Chemical Group and are expanding our industrial merchant and healthcare activities. We have also signed major semiconductor contracts in Asia. Finally, we have signed PPAs all over the world to secure supplies of renewable electricity and help our customers decarbonize. These examples demonstrate the diversity of our business model, covering multiple sectors and geographies. How our teams use their technological expertise to serve new markets, from cement to batteries. These illustrate our ability to build a major reservoir of future growth and to support the world's transformations with useful solutions.
Thank you, Benoit. Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, good afternoon, everyone. In the environment that Benoit just recalled, first of all, I would like to say that being here in this familiar setting with yourselves is not only a very special moment, but it's also a landmark, a key reference point in the life of your group. This also provides an opportunity to dwell together on the ground that we have covered, to commend the work of our teams, and to consider the future. In this changing world, my role, more than ever, is to ensure the usefulness and the long-term future of your group. And first of all, I would like to share my confidence with you. Confidence because we continue to deliver excellent results. Confidence because, without further ado, we are transforming the group in order to keep ahead. But before talking about the future, I would like to take a moment here to celebrate our progress and achievements in 2024. Jérôme's presentation, as well as the video we showed a few moments ago, illustrate this. 2024 was a year of commercial success, of records, of key stages in financial and extra-financial terms. And I think that we should emphasize in particular 3 points as follows. Number one, first of all, margin, record margin, a margin where our ambition has been raised to 460 basis points over 5 years. Those among you who have been with us for years know how absolutely unprecedented this is. This acceleration and this commitment reflect the efforts made by our teams and confidence in the transformation that is now underway. Next, our ESG indicators are all up, starting with safety. Safety of our employees and our partners, which is our absolute priority. But also progress regarding carbon intensity, gender parity, or care. And because this subject is dear to our hearts, Annette Winkler, a board member and chairperson of the Environment and Society Committee, will be dwelling on this in a few moments. And thirdly, finally, we have made investment decisions at record levels in order to prepare the future and strengthen our position on strategic markets. We are emphasizing key growth regions, Europe, United States, and Asia. And we are focusing our efforts on specific long-term projects which, as you've seen, will define the industry of the future. These achievements are remarkable, all the more so given the challenging environment we all know. These reflect another fruit of the talent, the hard work, the unswerving commitment of our teams, and their undivided attention to the requirements of our clients. This team effort is what makes our group such a strong group, and we will need this strength more than ever in a world that is changing at an unprecedented speed. And there's certainly one thing for sure here, that following in this kind of environment is not enough. And therefore, notwithstanding these these achievements, we must be able to accelerate. Why must we be able to transform and step up? Simply because while we're unable to control turbulence in the world, there's one aspect where we do have control, which is over ourselves. And our responsibility is to ensure that your group is in perfect working order, that it is both resilient and prepared in order to face the upheaval in the world, wherever it may be, agile and efficient, to remain competitive, to ensure that we remain autonomous in our actions and to seize all the opportunities that arise. And this conviction led us, as early as last year, to prepare ourselves for a world which we could see was undergoing deep upheaval, and therefore to launch without delay an internal transformation program, calling into question our certainties, our habits, by anticipating the evolutions that will be required by our clients, to establishing an organizational model with the means, the tools that will enable us to be even more agile, efficient, and innovative. As you know, any transformation is a difficult exercise, especially when all the indicators seem to be showing positive. And you also know that no transformation is an end in itself. What is driving us here is that we want to remain a step ahead to provide our teams with the means they need to better serve our clients and patients. So, what exactly are we talking about, and what have we already done in 2024? First of all, we decided to simplify our organizational structure in order to respond more quickly and more efficiently. Next, we are systematically rolling out our best industrial and commercial practices at global level by capitalizing on what works best, thereby exploiting the size and the know-how of the group. And finally, we are aligning our internal processes and deploying solutions and IT tools at global levels. This enables us to enhance the use of the billions of data that we generate each day and to exploit, for example, progress arising from artificial intelligence, from AI. And since transformation is not limited to processes and tools, we're also working on the group culture. On the one hand, we're strengthening the values and the behavior that ensure our success while making the necessary changes. Further, we are working on what we call day-to-day irritants, which sometimes hold back our potential and will become a handicap in the very demanding environment if we do not address them. As you will have understood, through this transformation, we are putting ourselves in working order to prepare the future and to have the resources to seize the emerging opportunities. We are implementing this transformation energetically, but with a sense of responsibility and with discernment in terms of what we need to change or, on the contrary, preserve and indeed strengthen. Because, and to quote what Benoit has said, while transformation towards greater agility is necessary in an accelerating world, stability of the fundamentals is equally important in order to calmly and positively see through a long-term strategy. And it's on this point, which is vital for our group, that I wish to conclude. I have full confidence in our future, and this is based on our results, on the transformation underway, and also on the structural strengths which make Air Liquide a unique champion in its own right. First of all, and you know this, it's the extraordinary resilience of our model. And this resilience has been further reinforced through recent initiatives, both through a diversified presence in terms of geographies, markets, technology, clients. All this provides us both with strength and incomparable stability, and also our local presence, which in particular means we are less exposed than others to current tariff wars. The second strength that sets us apart is our ability and capacity to innovate. As you have seen in the presentation today, technology is omnipresent at Air Liquide in healthcare, energy transition, electronics. All these areas are areas where our capacity to create value, to create progress through our technologies makes the difference. Our commercial successes in 2024 have proved this once again. And finally, and above all, we draw our confidence from our talents, which is our single greatest strength. Admittedly, many companies can say the same, but what you should know is that all those who join us from outside refer to the incomparable commitment and level of expertise of our teams. And what sets us apart is clearly this commitment, this passion for a job well done, which we see with everyone, with our welders, our drivers, our nurses, our coach drivers, our engineers, our support teams, our researchers, our commercial teams, with all of our 66,500 employees, because Air Liquide brings together an incredible diversity of businesses and profiles, and I wish to thank each and everyone here. Thank you, everyone. And it's thanks to them that we are able to move ahead, and it's thanks to them that we prepare the future. So, what about challenges? Well, there are clearly challenges, but through the combination of the strength of our fundamentals, strong results, the momentum of our transformation, this complex world is also, for your group, opening up a world of opportunities. Now, I do not have a crystal ball. I don't know what the future will provide, but what I can tell you for sure is that Air Liquide will be there. And I am firmly convinced that whatever may be the direction of world affairs, Air Liquide will always play an essential role. And this role includes innovation, performance, sustainable performance, and constantly renewed usefulness to serve progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, François. Let me now mention the highlights of the report on company governance as adopted by the board. Let me first of all start with a brief video on the makeup of the board and of the committees and the work done by the committees over the course of 2024. At the end of this AGM, the terms of office for three of the independent board members will come to an end, namely Xavier Huillard, Ayman Ezzat, and Bertrand Dumazy. Under resolutions 5, 6, and 7, you are asked or suggested you might reappoint them for 4 years. Xavier Huillard has been a board member since 2017 and has his as the chairman and CEO of Vinci. He shares and brings his great knowledge of the construction and transport and infrastructure industry, his knowledge of energy, and his knowledge of sustainability. He's also been the lead independent director since 2022, and the board has already, as a matter of principle, suggested it should reappoint him in this position, provided he is re-elected to the board. We are also suggesting you reappoint Ayman Ezzat, who is a director and has been since 2021. As the CEO of Capgemini, he can go on sharing his knowledge of digital cybersecurity, his financial expertise, and his knowledge on sustainability. Lastly, we are requesting that you re-elect Bertrand Dumazy. He is the Director General or CEO of Edenred, and since 2021 he has been contributing to the board his knowledge of digital transformation, finance, cybersecurity, sustainability, and marketing. At the end of the AGM, provided you pass these resolutions, the board would remain made up of 14 members, including 2 board members representing employees. There's 42% made up of women, 58% men, 83% independent directors. This is in line with the various profiles and cultures and knowledge with the diversity policy of the board. As concerns the specialized committees subject to the reappointments, the makeup of the Audit and Accounts Committee and the Appointments and Governance Committee would remain as they currently stand. The board has decided to bring some changes to the remunerations and Environment and Society Committees. Alexis Perakis-Valat would become a member of the Remunerations Committee and chair it, replacing Xavier Huillard. Christine Law would become a member of the Remunerations and the Environment and Society Company, and Michael Thaman would become a member of the Environment and Society Committee. Let me now give the floor to Xavier Huillard, the chairman of the Remunerations Committee, who will tell you more about the remuneration of the company officers. Thank you, Benoit. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, good afternoon. The Assembly is called upon to examine 6 resolutions relating to the remuneration of the company officers. The 9th one relates to the remuneration paid during or in respect of FY 2024 to Monsieur Jacob, the Chief Executive Officer. This includes a fixed amount of 1.21 euros, a variable amount of 1.608 to 11 euros, which is in line with the financial and qualitative criteria. The financial criteria of the variable compensation for 2024 have been achieved to the tune of 90% of the fixed amount. As concerns the qualitative criteria, the board has considered that the performance of the executive was very good as concerns corporate and social responsibility, and as excellent as concerns the organization and human resources. He remains committed and has remained committed to environmental and societal goals, which has led to significant progress in the extra financial indicators are under the advanced plan. And since then, François, in 2024, has undertaken a number of things to go on simplifying and streamlining the effectiveness of the organization. Let me also mention the excellent individual performance of François Jackoff in this very sluggish macroeconomic environment. And in an uncertain environment, he managed to steer the group and motivate it to achieve and deliver very reliable and robust performance. The qualitative objectives have been met to the tune of 43% of the fixed amount. There was also the allocation of stock options worth 1,814,304 euros under the IFRS. The 10th resolution relates to the remuneration of the chairman of the board, Benoit. And in line with the policy that you adopted, it includes a fixed amount of 800,000 euros. Let it be said that the chairman does not get any variable remuneration or any long-term or exceptional remuneration either. Under Resolution 11, you are called upon to endorse the remuneration of the corporate officers. The information relates to the annual remuneration of your company officers compared to the average and median compensation of employees of the company, but also compared to the average remuneration of employees in France. The ratio for the executives is up on the screen. Everything else is to be found on pages 158 and 159 of the Universal Registration document. The remuneration of non-executive directors, in line with the 2024 policy, within the 1.5 million budget euro for 2024, is to be found at pages 159 to 161 of the same Universal Registration document. You are also called upon to vote on the remuneration policy under resolutions 12 to 14, and that is presented in greater detail under pages 172 to 180 of the Universal Registration document. As concerns the general principle, the structure of the policy, the CEO's compensation is in line with what was approved last year. The financial criteria for the variable compensation relates to the net earnings per share and to the sales. The personal criteria still include and still go on, includes in CSR and organization and human resources criteria. The performance criteria are related to ROCE, to TSR, to the environmental criterion, also aligned on the reduction of CO2 emissions in line with the climate objectives of the group. The weighting of the climate criterion has been increased. It now reaches 15% instead of, compared to the 10% previously, and that has been the result of the two TSR criteria being brought down to 17.5% instead of 20%. This means that it is in line with a company which wishes as its strategy to bring together financial and extra financial performance. In line with these principles, François' remuneration is submitted to your votes under Resolution 12. The amounts are unchanged, 1.21 million euros fixed remuneration and a variable amount, target for a variable amount equal to 120%. And a maximum of 150%. The long-term incentive is 1.815 million euros. François will not get any compensation as a board member. He will go on enjoying the additional pension plan and will go on enjoying a compensation should he bring his collaboration with us to an end, and also a non-competition clause. You are also called upon under Resolution 13 to endorse the remuneration policy for the chairman, which is the exact same one as it was for 2024. He will get a fixed remuneration for 800,000 euros and no variable long-term exceptional remuneration and no fees as a director. The remuneration for the directors is covered by Resolution 14. It also follows into the footsteps of the compensation for last year. The variable compensation is the majority compensation, depending on the attendance at meetings, and an additional compensation is paid to the lead independent director and to the chairman of the committees. This helps at promoting attendance and actual effective participation of the directors to the board meetings and the committee meetings. The 1.5 million euro budget remains unchanged. Thank you.
Thank you, Xavier. Now, we shall move on to the report of the statutory auditors. Thank you, Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, good afternoon. On behalf of the statutory auditors, PwC and KPMG, I'm honoured to report on the mission that was entrusted to us. First of all, I will recall the role of the statutory auditors. Our mission is a mission of general interest, of control and supervision for the benefit of the shareholders and the stakeholders of the company. We oversee the quality and the transparency of the information produced in accounting, financial, or to do with sustainability. We have been appointed by this very same general meeting. We are governed by principles of, or very strict principles of independence and ethics. The conclusion of our work is translated into our reports, which are circulated to the shareholders. Our reports on 2024 are to be found in the convening notice for this general meeting and in the registration document for 2024. We produced 10 reports in 2024. A report on the annual financial statements, a report on the consolidated financial statements, a special report on related party agreements, a report on the certification of sustainability and taxonomy information, and 6 reports related to share capital transactions. As is customary, I propose to cover the key points of these reports. Our first report is on annual financial statements and is to be found on pages 272 to 274 of the registration document. Annual financial statements are prepared according to French accounting standards, and our work involves providing reasonable assurance that the financial statements do not show any significant anomalies. As part of our due diligence, we considered, we reviewed the evaluation of the equity securities as a key point of our audit, and we delivered an unqualified opinion certifying the annual financial statements of Air Liquide. Our second report covers the consolidated financial statements of your group and is to be found on pages 256 to 259 of the registration document. The consolidated financial statements are prepared according to IFRS standards as adopted by the European Union, and our work on the consolidated financial statements aim to provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements do not show any significant anomaly. Our global auditing approach is adapted to the activities and the various businesses of the group, as well as our organizational structure. It has been shared, along with the conclusions of our work, with the group's financial division through regular exchanges. We have also reported on our work to senior management, to the audit committee, and to the board of directors. Our report on consolidated financial statements includes three key audit items. The first two of which concern large industries, qualification of the contracts and the modalities of recognition of the revenue, the depreciation period of the manufacturing assets and the evaluation of their recoverable value. And the third key item concerns the impairment test on goodwill. In concluding our work, we were able to certify without reservation or comment the consolidated financial statements of the group. Our third report covers the related party agreements. It is to be found on page 405 of the registration document. We have not been informed of any new related party agreement in 2024, of any related party agreement previously approved by the AGM, the execution of which would have continued during the past year. Our fourth report concerns information regarding sustainability and taxonomy. You will find it on pages 369 to 372 of the registration document. Our report assurance report concerns certification of compliance with ESRS and European regulations on the process implemented by Liquide to establish the published information on information regarding sustainability included in the current report on sustainability, on taxonomy. On the basis of the procedures that we have implemented, we have not identified any error, omission, or major inconsistency regarding the compliance with ESRS and European regulations. Part 2 of our report includes a technical comment concerning the first implementation of CSRD as presented in paragraph 112 on the state of sustainability. And finally, as part of your extraordinary general meeting, we published 6 reports to be found on pages 406 to 411 of the registration document. They cover resolutions 15 to 21, authorizing transactions that may have an impact on the share capital of your company. These reports do not include any particular comment, and we will draw up additional reports where necessary, when and if these authorizations are used by your board. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, thank you very much.
Thank you. Let us now welcome Anna Winkler, head of the Environment and Society Committee, who will tell us more about what Air Liquide has done in that field. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, it's a great honor for me to be with you today for this unique moment in the life and the governance of your group. It is my great pleasure to represent the Environment and Society Committee and to address you on behalf of its members, the very committed and very passionate members who serve alongside me, Monica de Vigilis and Philippe Dubrul. The mission of our committee is to review the group's strategy as concerns environmental, social and governance issues. Environmental, social and governance. And we make sure that this is properly implemented so as to ensure the lasting performance of Air Liquide. Let us state first that not all companies have such a committee, but Air Liquide, being true to its visionary approach, has had such a committee since, yes, as early as 2017. It is therefore a great pleasure and a great responsibility to be in a position to support a group which considers that such issues are related to the group's deep-held beliefs, regardless of fashion, something that is really at the heart of its strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, let me maybe now present to you a number of the issues that the committee discussed over the course of last year. First of all, under environmental issues. Air Liquide, and it is noteworthy, issued its first climate transition plan, a key document that details and outlines the strategies, the levers, the stages, the milestones, which will enable us to reach the objectives of CO2 emission reductions, which the group has committed to. On social issues such as safety or health insurance for all members of staff have been reviewed. We were also mindful of the progress achieved in the field of diversity, and this was done through a detailed evaluation of the action plans. As concerns governance, you know, I'm sure, that the European regulatory framework is now more stringent. What with the implementation of the new regulation, the well-known CSRD regulation. I am proud to say that Air Liquide is the only actor in its industry to have published a sustainability report that is already fully compliant with this new directive. We welcome this step towards greater transparency. But let us also say that the reporting has also sometimes led to too much being expected of us. I think it might be worth simplifying it, streamlining it, and focusing resources on the implementation of the projects themselves rather than on reporting. Which is why we, or rather the committee, in the way we scrutinize CSRD, why we have been ambitious and reasonable at the same time in this still uncertain regulatory context. Ladies and gentlemen, all these successes were only achieved thanks to the excellent work of Air Liquide staff, and I should like to thank them and congratulate them from the bottom of my heart for this the work done this year, a year full of progress and achievements. We can assure you that across the board, across the ESG criteria, the issue of impact, or the impact is in fact what guides the choices made within the company. These issues are discussed by the chairman, by the CEO, and by the board as a whole with great dedication. As for the future, the chairman, Benoît Potier, has said it. The world is changing fast, fragmenting. And we can spot a number of tendencies and trends emerging, sometimes contradictory ones from one region to the next. And this is particularly true as concerns the environmental, social, and governance issues. And at the same time, great changes are underway, demographic, climatic, and societal ones, indeed. which means that these issues, which are key for the future of our planet and the company, will go on driving what Air Liquide does with great determination, focusing on the impact and on its long-term vision that is characteristic of the company. This long-term course, dear shareholders, is something that we can set for us thanks to you, thanks to this trusting relationship that you have established with this exceptional group. It is your trust that enables Air Liquide to, every day, create sustainable value. And thank you for that. Thank you, Annette. I think this brings us now to the end of our presentations, and we can move on to the question and answer session. Every shareholder is entitled to the preservation of their anonymity and the protection of their image. Any shareholder taking the floor will not therefore be broadcast over the internet. Anyone who would not want their name be referred to will not introduce themselves when they take the floor. That seems pretty reasonable and sensible. Let me remind you also that before we start, how things will happen. You are able to ask questions directly by requesting a microphone. We've also, up until 4 p.m., collected your questions by SMS. Let me remind you that as per the existing legislation, the questions put in writing to the board have received a written answer that were published and posted on the internet. They are available. Let me not, if you'll allow me, restate them today. You might be interested in learning that 39 of these questions, most of them indeed, related to the environmental and corporate responsibility strategy on the issues of governance and the abilities and skills of the board members, AI, hydrogen, or other specific projects. Again, you can find the answers on the internet. Let me move on to the oral spoken questions before we move on to SMSs. Let me take the first question. There are people in the room. Yes, question L, please, over there.
Letter L. Hello, Madam Chairperson, members of the board, shareholders. My name is Amélie Landrin. I'm an analyst at Ecofy, a committed management company, and I also represent a charity, Care Action. I'm asking a question on behalf of 15 institutional investors who account for 733 billion assets under management. We are delighted that Air Liquide is producing decarbonated water. Air Liquide is the third producer of decarbonated electricity. We commend its commitment to renewable energy. This only concerns existing assets. Demand for electric power will increase, and fossil fuel-sourced power could increase significantly for Air Liquide by 2035. Air Liquide does not have any specific policy regarding the quality criteria for the purchases of renewable energy. In order to favour decarbonisation of electric power, all renewable energy purchases have to lead to additional capacity in the grid. Two questions. First of all, does Air Liquide intend to publish short-term objectives regarding consumption of power for its projects for the company in addition to that of existing projects? And secondly, will Air Liquide publish a qualitative criteria policy for purchases of renewable energy in order to contribute to the expansion of renewable energy? Thank you. Thank you very much for this very pertinent question. I'll ask François to answer these two questions. They're very specific. He'll have far more specific information than I can have myself. Thank you, Benoît. Thank you, Madam, for asking the question. The question, to put this back into context, concerns our use of energy to produce our gas, in particular electric power to produce oxygen and azote, where you have indirect emissions of CO2, which are linked to the use of the energy. Scope 1 comes from CO2 emissions by Air Liquide entities producing hydrogen. Air Liquide was the first company in its sector to have commitments to diminishing Scope 1, Scope 2 emissions, direct and indirect. We have a trajectory for CO2, which has been communicated with an inflection of the absolute value of our direct and indirect emissions, starting 2024 in advance of our plan, with a decline of 1/3 of our direct and indirect emissions by 2035. So that is our framework for action, and Air Liquide is the first company to have made such commitments. Now, in this carbon trajectory, which is on a declining path, and notwithstanding the growth of our company's business, we have not specified all of the drivers that will enable us to achieve the target, bearing in mind that using more and more decarbonated electric power is part of our objectives and our means of action. We also publish in detail in our sustainability report the volume of renewable energy that we purchase every week. So to sum up, looking at the past 5 years, we've increased by 50% the quantity of renewable electric power that we have purchased, which now accounts approximately 1/4 of the power used around the world, bearing in mind that this renewable power is not necessarily available everywhere in sufficient quantity. And if you also include other sources of low-carbon electric power, in particular nuclear power, at group scale, at group level, it's 40% of the power that we use, which is low carbon. So that is not only our goal, but those are our results. And as you can see, we're very proactive in using all the drivers to use low-carbon electricity. Now, your second question is rather more specific, and it refers to what we call additionality, quote-unquote. In other words, when we buy renewable electricity, does this concern existing capacities or new capacities that are triggered by our requirements? Now, clearly, on a trajectory where we want more and more decarbonated renewable electricity, projects generate new capacities in renewable energy. We don't have any defined policy on this at present, but quite apart from political considerations, I would like to give some examples. We're at the stage of implementing, as opposed to goals on paper, 2 instances where we've achieved this additionality. Through Air Liquide, new projects have been established. The first is in South Africa for Sasol, where with our will to secure new capacity in renewable electricity. We've been able, over the past 2 years, to create, with partners who provide us electricity, 600 megawatts of renewable power between us and Sasol. And to date, this is the largest contract for renewable power in Africa. And the second case is the project in Normandy, where in order to generate hydrogen, we are using renewable energy, which will be used with new projects. So in order to be able to qualify hydrogen that will be produced by the Normandy unit, we have to have additionality criteria, which are European criteria, and we apply the GHG protocols, which enable us to qualify this electricity. So I'm sorry to have spoken at length, but this is a technical matter, and I do hope that you're now convinced that the group is fully committed to this trajectory to have more renewable power when it's available, market conditions permitting, and also to be able to create an ecosystem with more renewable power capacity. Thank you. Now, there was another question on L before we move on to other questions. So L, carry on with L, the gentleman in front there. Please use the mic, thank you. Chairperson, good afternoon. I'm representing APIE, the Association pour le patrimoine et l'actionnariat individuel. Thank you for your very clear, dynamic presentation. I would like to dwell on 3 points, if I may. Number one, last year, you established a global industrial division, a single division. What do you expect from it? Question number two. The minister in charge of industry and energy, Mark Ferracci, confirmed the granting of a major subsidy as part of a future green hydrogen unit factory to be established near Alp. Where do you stand in terms of green hydrogen? And my third question is a story that goes back over 100 years. 65 talented employees, a strategy for producing low-carbon power use, balanced geographical presence, a large number of individual shareholders, of loyal individual shareholders. With this reassuring originality and the continued work dedicated to individual shareholders, are you satisfied with the increase in the number of shareholders? Do you have a growing number of foreign shareholders? And you already stand at 900,000. When are you going to hit the 1 million mark? Mr. Potier, you set a goal of 40% of individual shareholders. Since you're exceeding all of your targets, do you intend to confirm that you will exceed this particular goal? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all of those questions. Well, it's really quite positive because you've told the history of Air Liquide, so I won't have to do it instead of you. Everything was positive. I'll answer the third question. François established the industries division for very good reasons that he will explain himself. And I think he met Minister Ferracci on several occasions, and he'll tell you what this subsidy is used for and how it's granted. France, can you deal with that? Thank you, sir, for the question on the industries division. Indeed, this is part of the simplification of our organizational structure. For those of you who know or may know, we had 5 industry divisions, each of which was dedicated to our business lines. So in electronics, large industries, healthcare, merchant businesses. There were some overlaps between these industry divisions, even though there were many shared topics. there was a bit of a silo effect regarding businesses that were sometimes very close to one another in the same country. So we tried to bring together all our technological and technical capacities with all our experts and to house them under a single industries division. And in order to achieve critical mass, in order to better meet the requirements of our clients, and also to offer our employees the possibility of drawing on each other's talents and experience and to go beyond a single business line. This also led to very specific action, in particular our capacity to roll out global initiatives, for example, for optimizing and for advanced control of our gas production units, and applying the same practices for electronics and major large industries, and also for the purchase of supplies, logistical supplies, in particular for liquid gases. So there have been some improvements which are already established, producing results, and all this is part of a will to be efficient and to put that efficiency at the service of our clients. The Minister Ferracci is a keen supporter of decarbonisation and the use of hydrogen to decarbonise industry and mobility, which are the two strategic thrusts of the Air Liquide group. He's made some announcements regarding green hydrogen, which is produced using electricity or biomass with very low carbon content. And in this regard, Air Liquide in France is very clearly #1 market leader, and in Europe and probably worldwide. To ask you where we stand, well, there again, we're no longer making announcements. We're building, and what we're producing is a hydrogen plant in Normandy, the electrolyzer project for 200 megawatts, which will produce hydrogen using renewable energy, renewable electrical power. It'll be the biggest electrolyzer of its type in Europe and in the world, probably. We had a lot of support from Europe and in France for the project in order to enable our industry clients to have competitive costs for this green hydrogen. Bearing in mind, and to conclude, apart from the Normandy example, the Air Liquide group, either in operation or in construction, has 7 low-carbon hydrogen plants in Europe, which is far and away the biggest number of industrial plants that are either operational or under construction. And this clearly illustrates the leadership of Air Liquide in producing low-carbon hydrogen.
Thank you. Can I maybe add that it's very satisfying to see that the governments we have experienced a change in governance since we introduced this hydrogen approach, but whatever the government, we have always been heard and supported by the authorities in what we do. As François has suggested, that means that we have had a number of investments in France, quite a few of them actually, and in Europe, for indeed we've gone well beyond the borders of France. So again, when it works well, we have to say it, and indeed, France has really understood the potentials related to hydrogen. Third question. You asked whether we were pleased with the number of shareholders. As I said earlier, there were 150,000 individual shareholders some years ago, 900,000 now. We're still working to increase that number. And I may well one day be pleased to say that we have reached the 1 million mark. That is, I hope, a goal that we can reach in a near enough future. Are there more or fewer foreign shareholders? Well, there are two parts to the answer. If you look at the individual shareholders, most of them are French, but there is an increasing number of European shareholders. And I do believe that that's a great piece of news. Indeed, individual shareholdings can grow in France and across Europe. The 40% goal that I may have mentioned in those days was a trend, I suppose, more than an actual goal. And the fact is that I'd mentioned it to change the trend. In those days, we'd noticed that the number of individual shareholders was going down, or rather represented less of the shareholder basis, and something had to be done. The shareholder division, the communication division meant that we were able to stabilize the share holding held by individual shareholders to somewhere around 33%. The fact is that we have stabilized the shareholding, or the number of shareholders, meaning that we have far more young shareholders, which was precisely our target demographic, and they will increase the individual shareholding. After all, they have a few shares to start with, and over time will grow their portfolio. So 900,000, that's good. Stay around, wait a bit, give us some time, and I do hope that we'll see the private or individual shareholders see their shareholdings increase. Next question over there to the right. S, please. Thank you, sir. And good afternoon. A question related to hydrogen production. As I think we all know, we will have too much electricity available in France for a bit. Would it be profitable? Would it be feasible to keep the electrolyzers working, or rather to have them working intermittently, depending on the price on the market, or with batteries? Well, basically, it's already what's happening. The electrolyzers can adjust their working practices, so to speak. They can see the charge increase significantly or drop significantly depending on the available power. Electrolyzers are factories, and it takes 2 years to build them, roughly. And we never build them if we're not entirely sure that the market is ready to absorb the hydrogen produced. So we have to find the right balance between construction, decision, the time for construction, and electricity. So even if we do have too much power available in the next 2 years, we won't be able to put it to good use in electrolyzers. However, you're right. If in the future we have more fluctuation because of a greater share of renewables in the energy mix, we could well consider storing wind power and solar power in fuel cells, hydrogen fuel cells, and that is exactly what is being envisaged already by a number of countries. So long-term hydrogen storage of power, yes, unlikely in the next 2 years for us to be able to do so. However, I hope that was a clear answer. Next question, and I'll come to the questions sent by text message. More than 100 questions were asked. We'll look at them and address a few. So a question up there, right at the back, at the top. I can't quite see you, but I do know that you're out there. Question T, please, at the very back on the right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Could you tell us how you relate, what kind of relationship you have with Linde, your German competitors? Answer, well, very minimal. After all, there are competitors. I'm not sure they're quite German anymore. And that's true. I mean, Linde de facto has shifted to the US, even though headquarters are in Ireland and the boards meet in Britain. The entire management team is in the US following the merger with Praxa. So Linde is much more of a US company. We do monitor what they do closely, indeed. We always look at what they issue, their quarterly reports. We run all kinds of comparisons between their performance and ours. And we can see them out there on the market. So, in fact, on a day-to-day basis, we fight against them across the board in all the countries and on all businesses. If I were to summarize the success stories on both sides, the fact is that Air Liquide has been very successful in energy transition in Europe, but not only in Europe. We were quite successful in the US. We also are leaders in the electronics business, and Linde's trying to catch up. So we are fighting on a daily basis here. And incidentally, it's very much the same thing on energy transition. And over the last 6 years or so, Linde have worked on performance, effectiveness, and they have increased their margins quite impressively, meaning that that puts us under pressure as concerns what we might be able to do and how we can improve our management of the company. However, we do limit to the very bare necessary ones our contacts with them. One last question for the moment before we move to text questions. Yes, over there, I, on the left, and then text questions. Yes, sir? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to the chairman, the CEO, and all the directors. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first time I'm able to attend the AGM in person. I'm very much impressed by the way it's been organized, by the video presentation, which is excellent. It flows nicely and it's impressive. So I think the team in charge should be congratulated. Second comment, I must say I was quite impressed by the attendance rate. That clearly illustrates how committed the board members are. I'm pretty sure that staff are committed to the team very much in the same way. Can I mention two things? First of all, the growth of our business in the US or in the Americas. I think there was a 7% figure that was mentioned. The CEO mentioned rates war or tariff wars. Is this number an illustration of the past? Will you go on trying to make sure that Air Liquide can be present despite this price war and tariff wars? So, yes, how will you react to the tariff wars? Secondly, we're talking about citizens at work, if I remember the phrase right. And there were issues about volunteering, and I was wondering whether the staff that is committed stays committed with these charities beyond their actual working hours. If it's only during the working hours, then it's, sponsorship, I suppose, or patronage, but how involved are they over and beyond their working hours? Could you maybe give us a few examples? Well, thank you, sir. Excellent questions. Thank you very much. François will address, both actually. He really will be able to do so. Well, let's try. Thank you, sir, for both these questions, and thank you for your comments and your support. That is heartwarming indeed. It's quite a commitment to organize the AGM, and I'm sure everyone's very moved by what you said. As concerns the growth of our group in the current and past environments, and you mentioned tariffs and the divisions between various areas. Well, I'd say we have to mention the tremendous resilience of Air Liquide. It really is part of our model. We have, as I was saying, a very diverse foothold, very diverse in terms of geography, clients, businesses. But we have different things in industry, in electronics industry. We have long-term contracts there that give us some visibility over the next few years, because generally speaking, we have 15-year contracts with a fixed share or fixed part, which is, how shall I put it, a rent paid to us in a way, a monthly payment, and then there are the commitments and the undertakings in terms of the volumes bought by our customers. So regardless of the environment, we have good visibility and strong resilience overall. So that's the first thing you need to remember. As concerns the local business, given the fact that we have local business, even in a tariff war, the simple fact that we don't really export anything, but we have business where our clients are, either co-located or in a center where we would dispatch the canisters here or there. So in fact, we're not actually affected directly by the tariff wars. And you could even almost argue that the way onshoring is happening, or in electronics, for instance, well, that might actually be an extra opportunity for us to build other production sites. Now, if you look at this also from a more macro point of view and you step back, I think the tariff wars as they are shaping will have a negative impact on the economy, on many of our clients, and this should lead to presumably inflation and also a reduction in the activity levels macroeconomically. But again, as I've said, we're less directly affected than the economy as a whole, but you still can't say that it's a great piece of news for the economy. You mentioned also the Citizens at Work project, something that we launched a few years ago. The point there was to try and encourage our employees to volunteer during working hours in all kinds of fields, not necessarily directly related to the business of the company. There might well be a number of personal projects. We know that our contribution to society at large is related to the business of the company, but we really want to make sure our staff are involved, are active members of society. This program was set up some time ago, as I said. About 90% of our staff have access to it now. But last year, only about 5,000 people got involved, so it's still early days. All sorts, and to answer your question, give you examples, that all sorts of things were being done with food banks in the US, for instance, or even in Europe. In Europe, we also had education related programs, for instance, mentorship or tuition for underprivileged young people. I myself contributed to initiatives on biodiversity in Korea, for instance, where we supported initiatives to replant trees in deserted areas or places with depleted soils. Does that go beyond the working hours? Well, we would let the employees themselves decide that. We want to facilitate this, to make it possible, but it's not for us to regulate the life of our employees outside of the workplace.
Thank you. So now let's look at the results of all the text messages. We received, as I was saying, 132 questions. All the questions were analyzed through an artificial intelligence mechanism. So that's a good use of AI. And there's a semantic analysis which enables us to have an overview of the key topics. So behind AI, I recall you do have human beings, and the human beings are the ones who put it all together and deliver the results, just by way of reassurance. So we'll see on the screen the most popular themes. Global economy and outlook, 30%. Energy transition and hydrogen, which is a key part of our programs. Performance, 30%. Financial and extra financial. Share ownership, 13%. HR, 10%. We selected 4 questions with François, and we'll divide them up between us in order to address, obviously not all, but at least some of your questions, and in particular the key themes. We'll start off with the first one, which is the theme of tariffs. How do the new tariffs introduced by the United States impact the electronic activities? I think that's the one you wanted to. Now, I think I've really answered the question in my previous response, namely, we're less impacted than many industrial sectors. Those few products that we import from the United States are, for example, hard goods such as safety equipment for the air and gas activity, equipment when we build plants, of course, and some specific molecules in electronics. And in each of these instances, we've looked in detail. We're working on alternative procurement sources, or in engineering, we build a plant in the United States, we import equipment from overseas. Contractually, we can pass on the price increase to our clients. So this illustrates the resilience, the very strong resilience of your group. Now, to continue with the question on the economy, I'll move straight on to health, which will shed some light. Will Air Liquide invest more in healthcare in order to rise to global challenges such as diabetes, respiratory diseases due to pollution? I think that's a good question for the future of the group. Well, the answer there is yes, we are continuing to invest very significantly in home care, which accounts for over 50% of our health business. The other part is providing medical oxygen to hospitals. In all countries, be they mature or developing countries, the needs are increasing because the population is aging, because we have medical progress in medicine. Some diseases are becoming chronic, and also due to the change in lifestyle, in food habits, which create more chronic diseases. So this means caring for patients at home in order to improve their quality of life and also to reduce the cost to the healthcare system. So this is continued growth there. And we're focusing on some specific pathologies, in particular respiratory diseases, and increasingly providing assistance and support to patients who need support for the treatment of their diabetes with insulin pumps. There's a whole chain here that has to be followed, and it's growing strongly, and it's greatly, highly appreciated. And ultimately, the service we provide, we have many clinical studies that illustrate this, improves not only the quality of life, but the follow-up to the patient's treatment. So this is very important because it means that we end up with patients who are better cared for and who overall will cost less to society. So we are shifting these models in many countries, and growth is to be found in Europe, Latin America. I was in Saudi Arabia a few days ago, where we have a high growth activity, but this involves Asia, Korea, South Africa. So yes, we're going to continue developing this business in order to meet the requirements of our patients. Right, I'll move on to something completely different concerning share ownership policy on dividends. The question as follows: why pay out so much in dividends compared to similar German companies at the expense of research or acquisitions? Well, I think we have to be quite factual. We do not pay out too much or not insufficient dividends. What we look at first and foremost is the result of the company, and we make sure that the result improves year after year. And in relation to this result, we distribute about just over half, which is very similar to not only to German companies, companies globally. You pay out 50 to 60% of profits through dividends. Do we do this at the expense of research? Definitely not. In our industry, we're among those who we're top in the investments in research. The American-German company Linde, we were talking about earlier, has cut its research quite significantly. So we are maintaining our research efforts. And as for acquisitions, we don't judge them on the basis of results, but we judge them on the basis of the strategic benefit and, of course, on our ability to finance them. You will have seen that Air Liquide's ability to invest in new acquisitions is very high because we have a debt-to-equity ratio of around 33%. And we could, in fact, be anywhere from 40 to 70%. So that leaves us a great deal of flexibility to exploit opportunities. So there's no particular restriction on acquisitions. It's more a matter of strategy. No damage to research whatsoever. And our dividend payments are very similar to global companies. Moving on to HR, which is the third theme. The question is Air Liquide going to give up all its diversity policies in America and around the world further to the demand made by Donald Trump? Well, I cannot resist the temptation of handing that question over to François. Well, things are changing very quickly. Well, indeed, there have been some executive orders which seem to limit the diversity policy applied by companies. And with the senior management team, which our conclusion is that what we're doing is totally consistent with the rules. We're not infringing, we're not breaking any American law in our practices, bearing in mind, and you have to go back to the debate here. Our vision has always been to hire and promote our employees on the basis of merit. Merit is the fundamental criterion for promotion of our employees. That's the first point. Point number two, we are absolutely firmly convinced, and that definitely goes for me, that diversity in all its forms, be it gender, age, education, nationality, is a source of performance, of innovation, of wealth for the company. So we want to promote diversity. We think it's a very good thing. It reflects the different environments in which we operate, and it's a performance factor. So what we need to do is to ensure that our communication is in line with that. We've checked this in detail, and that is indeed the case. So at group level and in the United States, there's no reason for us to modify our policy, which fundamentally conveys our values, which, once again, are values based on merit and the importance of diversity. And that's what we want to continue to do, and that's exactly what we will continue to do.
Merci François. Alors je vais prendre une dernière question.
One last question then, from text messages, that is, and we'll have more questions from the room after all, on energy transition and hydrogen. In this uncertain environment in which a number of energy transition projects are being called into question, isn't it risky to make any investment decisions when there is so little visibility outside of the EU? Well, these investment decisions, we don't take them alone. We have to have clients. When we decide to create a plant or to build a plant, it's when we have a client. Our clients themselves are delaying their decisions, both in Asia and in the US. But they haven't actually stopped their projects. They haven't discontinued them. They've suspended them or delayed them. But we really have to rely on the lack of the visibility of the clients. Now, in the US, the so-called IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, which isn't really connected to the inflation despite the name, but is in fact focuses in fact on new technologies. It hasn't been repealed because many Republicans could benefit from them, and many actors, many players who've already decided to do this or that will have to go through with their decisions because they are global companies. François mentioned earlier the Exxon project. Well, Exxon is forging ahead, and we think we can expect a decision sometime at the end of the year. So there is still cause for hope. Despite the difficulties, despite the hiccups, we expect a number of energy transition projects will go ahead. Let's come back to the room. There was a question up there, V, and then we'll have a look a bit later. V, question V, please. Thank you, and thank you for giving me the floor. Thank you for posting such results. A question maybe on your determination and impact. Could you not go further in your variable remuneration as concerns the environmental criteria? If I understand rightly, the 15% COT criteria and have a ratio as to your overall compensation, that's only about 5% of your remuneration. Can you go a little further? Well, remuneration. So I will address this because it is the Remunerations Committee or the board as a whole that addresses this. The 15% variable is actually already going up compared to what it was. It was at 10%. We've pushed it up to 15% consciously. Moreover, there's another part of the compensation that is dependent on a number of qualitative criteria and for which we factor in efforts made on non-financial issues. And institutional investors do seem to push us to increase that share. We are fairly favorable to that, but you shouldn't overlook the fact that managing a company is all about long-term viability and sustainability and therefore financials. So those are issues that are regularly discussed in the committee, in the compensation committee and in the board, with a readiness to increase ESG in the compensation for François and the entire executive committee. Another question here, L. Where is it? L.
peu devant, voilà.
Bonjour. Jean-Claude Laurenti.
Hello, Jean-Claude Laurenti, private shareholder for the last 30 years. Mr. Chairman, for the 2022 AGM, you said it would be good to bring down the average age of shareholders. You were saying that a €160 share was quite high, share price was quite high for young shareholders. And you said when things stabilize, we might divide the shares. I don't know if the situation has stabilized, but Investir, the magazine, recommends that we buy and sets a target at 215. Lastly, can I tell you that my grandson, born on the 27th of July 2023, has been a shareholder since the 1st of August that year? I expect he was the youngest shareholder of the company and significantly helps bring down the average age of shareholders. So, are you going to divide the shares? Well, thank you, sir, for the question. I think it's a recurring question, isn't it? You mentioned 2022. I expect that's a question we get every year. And it's a perfectly legitimate question. It is something we have to think about. Now, is the world more stable? Not really. Which wouldn't really convince us that we should overhaul the access to capital or the current habits. This being said, I'm not giving a negative answer. My real answer is to say that young shareholders would like to buy parts of shares rather than buying shares at whatever, 185 euros or 200 euros. They want to buy a part of a share. But if we divided the shares, would it really help? I don't know. In Germany, companies are suggesting or offering the service of buying part shares or fractions of shares. So we're not too sure whether in the current circumstances we should really divide the shares, because it is quite a lot of work that it does entail quite a lot of work for the shareholder teams to manage that. There's a lot of administrative work to be done. Thank you for the question. Let's see what happens next year.
Now we have a question at the top on the letter M, and I'd better look at the time. Yes, we're going to be reaching the last couple of questions or so, 2 or 3 questions. M. Hello, Chairperson, CEO. I'm an individual shareholder of Air Liquide for about 20 years. You spoke about investment since 2024. Can you go into a little bit of detail? Other question, could you specify the yield of the Air Liquide share in order to encourage shareholders, and what, in order for there to be more shareholders, because the yield is 1.something% with a 3.3 euro dividend, which is not very high compared to other shares. Thank you, sir. Well, we'll divide the work up between us. François, can you do the first question? I'll do the second. Right. Group investments of Air Liquide in 2024 were in excess of 4 billion euros, which shows regular increase in the amount of investment. for the advanced period, it'll probably be 50% more investment compared to the previous period, which reflects our capacity to secure new contracts, and it's a pledge to future growth because these investments are for plants, as I was saying, plants which are back-to-back with contracts over 10 to 20 years, which that means that we have strong visibility and a strong increase in our growth capacity. The geographical sectors are the Americas, Europe and Asia, the world's major regions, in other words, and mainly in large industries and electronics, with very strong growth in electronics, which continue to display very strong market dynamics with digitalization and strong needs in artificial intelligence. Right, the question on yield. Yield means the ratio between dividend and the share price is one way of looking at profitability from the shareholder standpoint. There's another one, which is quite widely used, which is the TSR, which is total shareholder return, which is the combination between dividend and the share price, because that's what's interesting ultimately to assess profitability. Now, just a bit of a there's an excellent website here, which is how to become a shareholder of Air Liquide, which provides you with a simulation tool that you can play around with, and which enables you and other potential shareholders and tells you how, if you invest so many euros, how much you would have as a portfolio at present value. And that's really a very interesting way of judging assessing the value of your investment, combining share price and dividend. So if you, sir, have people interesting, refer them to the website for shareholders, and you'll see they'll be very impressed by what they see in terms of the return. It's 11 to 12% a year over periods ranging from 5 to 20 years. And if we were to do the same calculation over a 40-year period, we'd have the same result. So investing in Air Liquide is pretty much means you get 12% return annually. I don't think there are very many companies that can sustain that kind of performance over time. And just one comment on the website. The fact that you have access to the website, your shareholder account, our preoccupation is to ensure the security of all our contacts with shareholders, and we're considering a solution to strengthening the security of our websites, which is one of our key goals under cybersecurity. So I just wanted to mention that aside with a reference to the Air Liquide website. Okay, two last questions. Up there and letter I. Well done on those results, which is one of the best companies in the CAC 40. Now, one on hydrogen. Does the profitability of your investments in hydrogen not have a negative impact on your margins that set you apart from Linde? And the second question, the growth of revenue and your profits, what is the outlook? Okay, I'll deal with the first. François will deal with the second one. Profitability of hydrogen, our only rule there on profitability of investment is return on capital employed, be it nitrogen or hydrogen or any other product. We have the same criteria. So we only invest in hydrogen if it's profitable over time and if it significantly improves the ROCE, the return on capital employed at group level. So that's the principle. Now, when you start a project, what you're doing, you need to know is that you're spending all of the capital amount in the 2 years prior to the project, and then you have a flow of business over 10 or 15 years. So the return on the initial capital starts from a low base, but which is under complete control, and after a 5-year period, usually, you achieve the goal on ROCE, and over the next 10 years, you have a return on capital which is in excess of the group average. So that's the group model. Hydrogen is no exception to that rule, and under hydrogen, that's what we implement. So hydrogen does not depart from that principle. And in terms of margins, it depends on the project, on the energy content. If you have high energy content, then the margins are lower because we buy the energy and we re-invoice it. So the greater the energy component, the greater the revenue and the greater the return. So we have different products with different margins, but the important thing is the return on capital employed, and that's the single lasting rule. Outlook for 2025, François? Regarding the outlook for 2025, as you know as well, sir, we do not give any guidance with figures on our revenue, nor on our result, nor on sales, but you can see that we deliver consistent growth, and this is what we communicate to the financial market. It's the growth in our result and the growth in our operating margin. And we have stepped up our commitment by communicating on the increase in the margin by 225 basis points for 25-26. So we're fully on target with that trajectory. That's our goal. So sorry maybe to be disappointing you. So what we can see is that the world is undergoing upheaval, and it's very difficult for all the economic sectors to forecast growth. And as part of that, going back to our fundamentals, our commitment is to continue to boost profitability of the group by working first and foremost on what we can control, namely our own operations and the way we operate. Thank you. I think we had a question under I. I'll take that question, and I'm afraid that will have to be the last question because we have to move on to the vote. So, yes, congratulations on the consistency of your results, which Warren Buffett would be very happy about. 3 questions on the hallmark of Air Liquide. What differentiates you from your leading competitor, your strength? If you had to select a strength. Second point, the breakdown of the capital. I see that there are 4 times as many foreign institutional investors as French investors. Why is it that you're not able to attract more institutional investors in France for a flagship company in France? What threat could there be to your business model? What would be the nightmare that you never want to have? Well, I think we'll try to avoid ending on the nightmare. We don't want to damage morale. So maybe François can deal with that question first, and then he can talk about the strength which will restore some balance to... Thank you so much, Benoit, for handing that question over to me. Well, of course, as the CEO of Air Liquide and as a senior management team, we're very confident in the future, but we have to constantly be asking ourselves questions to be rather paranoid, especially in today's world. And given all the major changes that could have an impact on the group, the world now is very fragmented, with not only tariff barriers emerging, but regions of the globe that become incompatible. For example, if you have a business in the United States, you This means you cannot have a business in other countries or vice versa. So for some international groups, that could create problems. It's not the case with us. Our playing field, as it were, is the world as a whole. That would raise questions, but this being said, the group's history shows that the group has been able, in all situations, to find solutions, to reinvent itself. Our strength has been our capacity to innovate, to understand our clients' needs, and to act at local level. It's wouldn't be a nightmare. It's probably something that would stimulate us, and we'd find solutions. Thank you. Thank you, François. Thank you, Benoît, says François. The strength, and now for the strength. Well, the strength that sets us apart, and we could spend a lot of time on this, but briefly, let's try and be brief. Looking at our competitors, two things. Our long-term vision, which is a hallmark of the group, and which is this capacity to deal with day-to-day matters, operational matters, but to have this obsessive focus on sustainability in the full meaning of the word. Durability, sustainability. That's a hallmark of the group. It's a strength of the group. It is shown in our investments, and the second point is our unbelievable innovative capacity and the technological potential of the group. We are a company where we can create value with technology. We make a bet on technology, and we can use it to serve progress. And when we look at all our competitors, we probably spend double the amount on R&D that our competitors spend, and that is another hallmark, which is very much part of our long-term mission.
Well, thank you. And as concerns the shareholding, yes, you're right. There are 14% shareholders, which are French institutional shareholders, 33% private shareholders, mainly French, not all French, but come on. So that's a large basis. And it's true that some 10 years ago, French institutional investors accounted for 20%. Nowadays, it's what, 14, 15%? Well, it comes from their investment choices, the globalization of investments and capital. And I'd say that we saw this happening, and we saw the drop of in French investors to below 50%. There was very little we could do to offset that, apart from marketing with French institutional investors or with private investors. French investors, private institutional investors decided to go and invest across the world. Well, look, come on. It's almost 50-50. We're at 47th for 53. It might not be exactly what we would have hoped for, but it's still a great stabilization of capital in France, and that's a good thing. Thank you very much for all your questions. Time is flying. Let me suggest we move on to the votes of the resolution. As you have seen, when you signed your attendance sheet, you got a tablet which will enable us to tally the votes immediately, and there'll be a quick video to introduce the use.
Pour voter les résolutions de l'Assemblée générale, une tablette vous a été remise. Elle est strictement personnelle et sert uniquement lors de cette assemblée. À l'annonce du vote d'une résolution, la fenêtre de vote s'affiche automatiquement sur votre tablette, même si celle-ci est en veille. Pour voter, rien de plus simple. Appuyez sur le bouton correspondant à votre choix. Pour, abstention ou contre. Appuyez sur OK pour valider votre choix avant la clôture du vote. Une fois votre vote validé,
vous ne pouvez plus le modifier. Merci de bien vouloir restituer votre tablette en sortie de salle.
So much for the instructions. Your tablets will be activated automatically. There are people in the room to help you if you have any questions. Let's now move on to the vote of the resolutions for the agenda. Seeing as these resolutions are in the documents that you got before the meeting, I will not, if you agree, read them in detail, but only give you the summary that you will see on the screens. The resolutions from the ordinary AGM. First resolution, approval of the company financial statements for the fiscal year ended December 31, 2024. Make your choice and then validate and confirm. Please vote. Voting complete, and please remember to confirm your vote. The results will appear on the screen. In favour, 99.7%, motion passed. Resolution number 2, approval of the consolidated financial statements for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2024. Please vote. Voting complete. For 99.76%, motion passed. Resolution number 3, appropriation of the 2024 earnings and setting of the dividend. Please vote. Voting complete. For 99.89%, motion passed. Resolution number 4, authorization granted to the Board of Directors for a period of 18 months to allow the company to trade in its own shares. Please vote. Voting complete. For 98.62%. Motion carried. 7. Renewal of the term of office. 5. Renewal of the term of office of Mr. Huillard as director. Please vote. Voting complete. For 98.29%. Passed. 6. Renewal of the term of office of Mr. Ayman Ezzat as director of the company. Please vote. Voting complete. For 85.85%. Motion passed. Thank you. 7. Renewal of the term of office of Mr. Bertrand Dumazy as director. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. For 93.85%.
Résolution adoptée.
Approved.
Huitième résolution.
8. Statutory Auditor's Special Report on agreements covered by the Articles L225 and 38 and following of the French Commercial Code. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. For 99.98%. Approved. 9. Approval of the components of the remuneration paid or awarded in respect of the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2024 to Mr. François Jackoff, Chief Executive Officer. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. For 96.10%.
Résolution adoptée.
Approved.
Dixième résolution.
10. Approval of the components of the remuneration paid during or awarded in respect of the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2024 to Monsieur Benoît Potier, Chairman of the Board. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. For 98.07%.
Résolution adoptée.
Approved. Thank you.
Onzième résolution.
11. Approval of information relating to the remuneration of corporate officers as referred to in Article L2210-9-1 of the French Commercial Code. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. For 97.33%. Approved.
Douzième résolution. Approbation de la politique de rémunération.
Resolution number 12, approval of the remuneration policy applicable to the CEO. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. For 95.75%. Resolution adopted. Resolution number 13, approval of the remuneration policy applicable to the Chairman of the Board of Directors. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. For 98.65%, resolution adopted. Resolution 14, approval of the remuneration policy applicable to directors. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. For 99.34%, resolution adopted. So the 15th resolution, authorization granted to the Board of Directors for a period of 24 months to reduce the share capital by cancellation of treasury shares. Voting complete. For 99.22%, resolution adopted. Resolution number 16, delegation of authority granted to the board for a period of 26 months to increase the share capital by the issuance of ordinary shares or marketable securities with retention of preferential subscription rights for shareholders for a maximum nominal amount of 470 million euros. Please vote. Voting complete. For 98.04%, resolution adopted. Resolution 17, authorization granted to the board for a period of 26 months to increase, in the event of oversubscription, the issuance amount of shares or marketable securities. Please vote. Voting complete. For 97.18%, resolution adopted. Resolution 18, authorization granted to the board for 38 months to grant to employees and company officers share subscription options, resulting in the waiver by shareholders of their preferential subscription rights to shares to be issued. Please vote. Voting complete. For 96.88%, resolution adopted. Resolution 19, authorization granted to the board for 38 months to grant existing or new shares to employees and company officers, resulting in the waiver by shareholders of their preferential subscription right to the shares to be issued. Please vote. Voting complete. For 97.94%, resolution adopted. Resolution number 20, delegation of authority granted to the board for a period of 26 months to perform share capital increases with cancellation of preferential subscription rights reserved for members of a company or group savings plan. Please vote. Voting complete. For 99.12%, resolution adopted. Resolution 21, delegation of authority granted to the board for 18 months to perform share capital increases with cancellation of preferential subscription rights reserved for a category of beneficiaries.
Le vote est ouvert.
Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete.
Pour 99, tout rond.
For 99%. Resolution adopted.
22e résolution.
Resolution 22, amendment of Article 14 under the law of June 13, 2024, aimed at increasing the financing of businesses and the attractiveness of France. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete.
Pour 99,89%.
For 99.89%. Resolution adopted. Resolution 23, powers for formalities. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. For 99.97%, resolution adopted. That concludes the vote. Dear shareholders, thank you very much for your trust. I will adjourn now at 17:46 since there are no further requests for items. Thank you very much for attending. Look after your families, your nearest and dearest, and see you very soon. Thank you very much.